The twin moons of Pandora hung low in the purple sky as Sakmo gathered her sacred herbs near the base of Home Tree. The forest was quiet tonight, too quiet for her liking. She had lived for nearly 200 cycles, and she knew when the spirits of Awa whispered warnings through the rustling leaves. Something was wrong in the world tonight. A young hunter named Sudi came running through the bioluminescent ferns, his breathing heavy and his eyes wide with concern. He stopped before Moat and pressed his fist to his chest in respect. His tail swished nervously behind him as he struggled to find words. "Zak, you must come quickly," he said. "The human warrior, the one called Marcus Stone, has fallen ill. His skin burns like fire, and his eyes see things that are not there. Naturi found him collapsed near the River of Souls. She carried him back to the healing caves, but nothing she tries is working." Moat straightened her spine and looked toward the distant mountains. The human had been living among their people for 3 seasons now. He had proven himself in battle against the Sky People who sought to destroy their home. He had earned his place in the clan through blood and sacrifice. She remembered the day he had stood between their warriors and the metal sky demons, taking wounds that would have killed any Na'vi twice over. Yet he had survived. Humans were strange creatures, fragile in some ways, but impossibly strong in others. "Take me to him," Mo commanded. They moved through the forest with the silent grace of their people. The trees themselves seemed to lean toward them, their leaves glowing soft blue and green as they passed. Mo had walked these paths since she was a child, and she knew every root, every stone, every hidden hollow where the forest spirits liked to gather. Tonight the spirits were restless. She could feel their energy pressing against her skin like a warm wind. The healing caves sat at the heart of the clan's territory, carved into the side of a great stone formation that the Old One said had fallen from the sky in the time before memory. The walls inside glowed with natural phosphorescence, and sacred vines hung from the ceiling, their tendrils reaching toward anyone who entered. These vines were connected to Awa herself, and through them, Mo could sometimes hear the voice of their mother goddess. Inside the largest chamber, she found the human lying on a bed of soft moss. His normally dark skin had turned pale and gray, and sweat covered his entire body. His chest rose and fell in rapid, shallow breaths, and his hands gripped the moss beneath him so tightly that his knuckles had gone white. Naturi knelt beside him, pressing cool water to his forehead with a cloth made from hammock tree fibers. "He spoke of his home world before the fever took his mind," Naturi said without looking up. "He spoke of a place called Detroit, of buildings that touched the clouds and rivers that have been poisoned by his people's machines. He spoke of a woman named Sarah who died before he came to our world. I think she was his mate." Moat knelt on the other side of the human and placed her hand on his chest. His heart was beating too fast, like a frightened Yarrick running from a Thanator. The heat coming from his body was almost painful to touch. She had seen fevers before in her own people, but nothing quite like this. Human bodies were so different from Na'vi bodies. They were smaller, weaker in muscle, with strange soft pink skin and no cue to connect them to Awa. Yet they had minds that never stopped working, never stopped creating, never stopped finding new ways to survive. "How long has he been like this?" Moat asked. "Since the sun began to set. He was training with the young warriors when he suddenly fell. At first we thought he had simply pushed himself too hard, as he always does. But then the shaking started, and then the fever." Naturi's voice cracked slightly. "He saved my father's life during the last battle. I cannot let him die, Zak. I cannot." Mo understood. Debts of blood were sacred among their people. When someone saved your family, you owed them a piece of your spirit forever. She began examining the human more closely, looking for any wounds that might have become infected, any marks that might indicate poison. She found nothing obvious on his arms or legs. But when she checked his back, she discovered a small puncture wound near his spine, no bigger than a thorn prick but surrounded by dark purple discoloration. "He has been stung by a venom singer," Moat said grimly. "One of the small ones that live in the shadow flowers near the river. Their poison is mild for our people, causing only a few hours of discomfort. But for a human," she did not finish the sentence. She had seen what venom singer poison could do to the small mammals that sometimes wandered too close to their territory. The fever came first, then the hallucinations, then the body began to shut down as the poison attacked the blood itself. In creatures as small as those mammals, death came within hours. The human was larger, and his kind were famous for their stubborn refusal to die easily. But even so, she knew she faced a battle that would test every bit of knowledge she had gained in her long life. "Naderi, go to the storage caves and bring me the blue root that grows near the waterfall. Bring also the bark of the pain tree and as many glowing seeds from the healing flowers as you can carry. Sudi, I need you to gather the other healers. We will need many hands tonight." Both warriors hesitated for only a moment before disappearing into the darkness. Moat turned her attention back to the human. His eyes had opened slightly, but they were not seeing anything in this world. His lips moved in silent words, conversations with ghosts that only he could perceive. "Stay with me, warrior," Moat said softly in his language. She had learned it over the past seasons, finding it harsh and ugly compared to the flowing sounds of her own tongue, but useful for communicating with the handful of humans who had earned their trust. "You have fought too many battles to lose this one. Your ancestors are watching. Your Sarah is watching. Do not shame them by giving up." She did not know if he could hear her, but she had learned that humans responded to challenges in ways that her own people sometimes did not. Tell a Navi that he was dying, and he might accept it as the will of Awa. Tell a human the same thing, and something in their eyes would change. Some fire would ignite that seemed to burn hotter than any fever. The night grew long and dark as Moat worked. Naderi returned with the herbs, and together they created a paste that Moat applied directly to the wound on the human's back. The blue root was ground into a fine powder and mixed with sacred water from the Tree of Voices. She made him drink it slowly, drop by drop, even as his body tried to reject it. Other healers arrived and took positions around the chamber. They began to sing the old songs, the ones that called upon Awa to lend her strength to those fighting for their lives. The vines on the ceiling began to glow brighter, responding to the combined spiritual energy in the room. Moat had never tried to use the connection to Awa to heal a human before. She did not even know if it was possible. Humans had no cue, no way to physically join with the neural network that connected all life on their world. But she had to try. She took two of the sacred vines in her hands and pressed them against the human's chest over his heart. She closed her eyes and reached out with her spirit, searching for any spark of connection. At first there was nothing but emptiness, like shouting into a void and hearing no echo. Human minds were close to Awa in ways that seemed almost cruel. Then she felt something. It was faint, barely a whisper, but it was there. Not a direct connection like she would feel with one of her own people, but something else entirely. It was as if the human spirit was burning so brightly that its heat could be felt even through the walls that separated him from Awa. She had heard stories of this, ancient tales of humans who had come to their world in the time before the Sky People turned to war and destruction. Those old stories spoke of how human spirits were different, not weaker, but simply shaped by a world that had no Awa, no great network of life to join them together. Instead of connecting outward, human spirits connected inward. They built their strength from memories, from love, from pure stubborn will. They carried their ancestors not in a great shared consciousness, but in their individual hearts. It was a lonely way to exist, Moat realized. No wonder humans were always building, always creating, always reaching for things beyond their grasp. They were trying to create connections that her people had always taken for granted. She poured her own strength into the vines, not trying to connect to the human spirit directly, but simply offering it energy like fuel for a fire. She felt her healers doing the same, felt the combined power of a dozen. Navi spirits pushing back against the darkness that was trying to claim the warrior's life. Hours passed. The fever raged and retreated, raged and retreated. The human's body convulsed, then went still, then convulsed again. Moat lost track of time, lost track of everything except the battle she was fighting. She heard voices from far away, felt hands pressing food and water to her lips, felt Natari's worried presence hovering nearby. Sometime before dawn, the human spoke clearly for the first time since the fever had taken him. His eyes were still closed, but his voice was strong. "I will not die here," he said. "Not today. Not like this." Moat felt something shift in the energy flowing through the vines. The human spirit, that strange isolated flame she had sensed earlier, suddenly blazed brighter than anything she had ever felt. It was as if all his memories, all his love, all his losses, all his victories had condensed into a single point of pure defiance. The fever, which had been fighting against her healing for hours, suddenly broke like a wave crashing against an immovable stone. The human's temperature began to drop. His breathing slowed and deepened. The purple discoloration around the wound faded to a healthier pink. Moat watched in exhausted amazement as his body began to repair itself with a speed that should have been impossible. When the first rays of sunlight entered the healing cave, Marcus Stone opened his eyes and looked directly at her. His gaze was clear and focused, no longer lost in the fevered dreams that had held him captive all night. "Thank you," he said simply. Moat sat back on her heels and allowed herself a small smile. She had healed many of her own people over her long years. She had pulled warriors back from the edge of death more times than she could count. But this healing felt different. It felt like the beginning of something new, a bridge between two peoples who were more alike than either of them had ever realized. "Rest now, warrior," she told him. "You have earned it." As she stood and walked toward the cave entrance, she heard Natari rush to the human side, heard the soft sounds of relief and gratitude. Outside, the forest was waking up to a new day. The creatures of the night were returning to their homes, and the creatures of the day were emerging to take their place. The eternal cycle continued, as it always had, as it always would. Moat looked up at the sky, where the last stars were fading into the brightening blue. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, beyond the moons, there was a world called Earth where billions of humans lived and died without ever knowing the connection to Eywa that her people enjoyed. She had once believed that this disconnection made them lesser beings, broken children of a broken world. Now she understood that she had been wrong. Humans had their own kind of strength, their own kind of connection. They carried their bonds inside them rather than outside them. And when those bonds were threatened, when the people they loved were in danger, they could summon a fire that burned hotter than any star. The warrior would live. And somewhere in the great mystery of Eywa's plan, Moat knew that this moment mattered. This small victory, this single life saved, was part of something larger than any of them could understand. The humans and the Navi were learning to see each other clearly at last. They were learning that courage and love and the will to survive were the same in any language, on any world, in any heart that dared to keep beating against the darkness. She turned and walked back into the forest, already thinking about the herbs she would need to prepare for the warrior's recovery. There was much work still to be done. But for now, in this moment, she allowed herself to feel something that her people rarely felt toward the Sky People and their kind. She felt hope.